Hello, and welcome back to the Holistic Hatha Yoga Podcast. I am your host, Kelsey, and happy July. We are right in the middle of July. By the time this comes out, we're, past the middle, and we are on our way towards August. So, holy cow, the time has really flown. This summer, we have just been on the go. We've been home a lot, but just very busy. Everyone's very busy and going to the beach and going here, there, everywhere. All the action is happening now. But, that's the beauty of summer. That's what it's here for. It's here with that high energy, with that fire energy, and it's here to, really bring us, like all that fun, good vibes energy. Anyway, but that being said, I'm going to be very excited for the fall when things slow down a little bit. We relax into routine a little bit more easily, and we begin our kind of downward slope into the rest of winter. So, happy July. Today on the podcast, I wanted to talk about um, breath and anxiety and the way that it's linked to anxiety um, in the way of yoga and in yogic terms. And so I hear this a lot from people. And so I was like, this is something we should just talk about on the podcast and clear up the air. Because a lot of people say, can you do breath work for anxiety and things like that? And of course you can. So let's dive right in. First of all, the Hatha Yoga perspective of our breath is really one, our breath is connected to our prana, and our prana is our life force energy. That is like just riding the currents of our body while we are alive, and when our body dies, our life force energy, our prana, leaves the body, and the breath is the connection point. And so in yogic philosophy, we see breathing as kind of the active part of it's almost like a really beautiful weaving or like a dance, between our life force energy and our physical body. And it's a very rhythmic, um, happening. It's really trippy, man, when you think about it. When it comes down to how we breathe and our lungs and all the things, it's pretty wild, taking in this gaseous stuff around us through our lungs and or like down through our um, trachea, and then I was going to say esophagus, but the esophagus goes down to your stomach, your trachea goes to your lungs, and from there it breaks off into tons of little tiny branches, and then at the end of those little branches are all these little, like, they almost look like little grape sacks, like little sacks, and they're called your alveoli. We've talked about this on the pod before, and that's where this beautiful oxygen and carbon dioxide exchange happens on a molecular level, and it trades off in the blood. The blood runs everything through the body or through to the different parts of the body, and like our body is literally this like well-oiled machine that's running off of itself and everything around it, consistently changing and evolving and repairing and dying all at the same time. We live as our cells live and die. You know what I mean? Our skin cells are not the same. Our inner linings, like our intestinal lining, gets reproduced and changed all the time. Um, and so we like to think that we're so solid and that this is my body and it's been my body forever. And it's like, actually not one piece of that body is really the same as what it was when you were born or when you were a child or anything. You might have some same structure and shapes and genetics and such, but on a molecular and cellular level, you are completely different, and this is where resonance comes in, and this is where vibration comes in, and where you reside in the spectrum of energy, And so our breath connects us to the spirit in that way. And when the breath leaves the body, the spirit leaves the body. And so this is really kind of like the magical point that we can connect to our body and our spirit in a really physical way through using our breath. And so a lot of times when we are experiencing anxiety or anxiousness or um, yeah, feelings of unease or unsettling in those areas. A lot of the times, if we were to tune into our breathing at those moments, we would recognize that our breath is very shallow. It's in the upper part of our chest. We're just kind of letting like the collarbones rise a little bit, and then exhaling. And you're having these small, faster breaths. Now, also, let it be noted that the sages some of the yogic sages believed that you were born with a finite amount of breaths that you were going to take in this life. And so that was another key part of slowing down the breathing, was because if you speed your breathing, you're wasting your breaths of your life, And so they would perfect the art of doing those long, slow breaths. And they'd be able to bring their heart rates down. They'd be able to enter these trance-like states, these very deep meditative states, where they could really just experience that oneness and that bliss. And, this is where yogic powers and things would come in, such as telepathy and astral projection, things of that nature. Anyway, I digress a little bit. So when we are having anxiety, we can typically find that we're breathing into the chest. We're doing very shallow breathing. So this is where we can use our breath as a tool to pretty much instantly start to override that anxiety naturally with our own breath. And that is by starting to just take those deep belly breaths, where you let that breath come all the way down to your belly button and inhale from the low part, letting your belly kind of come out as you breathe, and breathe in slowly from the very bottom of the lungs all the way up towards the top of your lungs or towards your collarbones, really expanding there. And then even when you think you have a full lung capacity, try to take like one more inhale, one more little, just bring in a little bit more air than what you think you can. And then you can hold that for a couple moments and then exhale out nice and slow as well. This can be really, really powerful for just starting to ease into the body and ease into your mind, ease into the moment, And so if you're having kind of a heightened, like hyperventilating moment already, slowing down the breath, taking those deep belly breaths is the key. And so, also though, if you're hyperventilating, you've missed a lot of red flags along the way, my friend. I'm really sorry to say. And so let's talk about all the signs coming up to that, before you would be that anxious, but a lot of this comes back to really practicing yoga holistically, which would, of course, bring us to awareness of the mind. Where is the mind going when we're feeling these feelings of anxiety? Is it something that we can change and have power over, or is it something that is completely out of our control, and thus we need to let go and let be and move on? So And then, I was going to say those are really the only two ways it can be, but it's not, because sometimes life just fucking sucks. And so sometimes we need to have compassion for ourselves or for others or for a situation, and so sometimes things can just blow. But that being said, you can still feel the feelings, take those deep breaths, and like bring yourself into regulation. You know, just because something is shitty does not mean that your dysregulation is going to help it be any less shitty, and I feel like sometimes we as humans like to wallow a little bit, and it's really just sometimes it's just perpetuated by our mind patterns. And so being aware is key. And so when it comes to anxiety, we really have to consider our mind and our thoughts, and where are those going? Are they helpful? Are they hurtful? Is it something we need to let go of? Is it something that we can take action on? But also, nothing happens in it instantly. We can only take small changes, and those small changes happen instantly, as we go. And then they build upon each other, and then all of a sudden we've got the thing that we're looking for, or we're built the thing. We have built the thing that we're looking for. So anyway, um, when we are getting anxious, we need to come to the mind. We need to come to the breath. And this is also where meditation can be a really great thing. I feel that and I hear that a lot of my anxious people are, they're like, well, I just can't sit still. I just can't do that. Like, nope. It's a big no from them when asked to slow down, and that's a huge red flag. Um, and so if this is you, let's look at that, and so this can be done really gently, I feel, in meditation. And so this can be literally just a seated meditation where you just have the eyes closed. And if you've never practiced this before, you will experience what is the monkey mind, or as the yogi sages would call it. But essentially, they recognize the fact that, yes, our mind jumps all over the place and throws all these different things into our vision for us to see and think about, and rabbit holes to go down. But the idea here is that we are not a slave to our mind, that we are the master. And so it is allowing our mind to throw all of these distractions up to us, and not engage in them, and just kind of let them fall away, and let them be seen, let them be heard, and then they will naturally fall away. And so a lot of the time, the people who cannot sit still, or refuse to allow themselves to sit still, are the ones who are scared of what will come up when this happens. So anxiety, I feel like, is always tied to unprocessed feelings, unprocessed emotions, and that is where we can dive into meditation and start to unpack those. I love the saying, you've got to feel it to heal it. And I think it's because I was someone who did not believe that. I was like, nope, we could just logically understand it and move on. Like, move the fuck on, and it never bothered me type thing. When it really did bother me. And so, of course, I would sit with resentment, however deeply buried, and deny it, and you can't deny what's real. You can't deny the truth. So, a lot of times you're like, well, I don't want to experience those feelings. I just want to bury them. However, again, if you just allow yourself to feel it, they literally go away. They don't stay on anymore. They don't go back buried into your heart. They literally leave the body. And that was something I didn't necessarily understand until my later years. And so once I started doing that, obviously I had a lot of shit to feel before I could heal. And then And then it was great because once I kind of got through all that bullshit, I could come to, more daily maintenance. It's like a house, If you don't, if you never deep clean the house ever, never ever, for years and years and years, you're gonna have a really big mess on your hands to clean one day, or someone is. Um, and versus if you keep up on the deep cleans, you do it, seasonally on certain things and this, that, the other, everything kind of remains clean and nothing really gets too dirty. And it's never really that big of a job to tidy up or straighten up or clean because everything's already pretty much clean because you're keeping up on it on a daily basis in different cycles in different ways. And so we have to look at our mind like that, and so we can clear out all the gunk and we'll feel good for a while. But then, of course, other things are going to happen because life happens. So it's going to continue to change and continue to move on. And so we need to be able to, feel those things as they come up, let them go and move on with our lives instead of burying it and, letting these big emotions erupt eventually because we're not feeling things as they come up. So that's another huge thing with anxiety and awareness is not burying those things and letting them be felt as we come across them. Um, so you can definitely dive into the breath to help heal anxiety instantly. But anxiety is really a mental game, and um, it comes down to your mindset, and so I think meditation can be a great time to do that. And if you don't like seated meditation, then I highly recommend doing a driving meditation. So this probably sounds dangerous to you, but it's not at all. It's actually the most safest type of driving you could possibly do. Because what you do is you don't have any distractions, no music, no nothing, silence, you can have your air going or something, so you have fans, but basically silence, and you just drive. You just drive and you stay in the present moment. And as your mind brings things up, it might be some of these bigger things that you haven't felt that you need to heal, or it might just be some random bullshit that you don't need to think about anyway. And so just letting those things come up and letting them go, and just doing your best to stay in the present moment and just completely zenning out in the present, resting in the present while you're doing something. Obviously you can't go to sleep, you're driving. But, a lot of times people are listening to stuff or they're kind of on autopilot, and so this is taking this autopilot time and like turning it into an intentional practice of being present. And this can be really powerful, especially if you don't like seated meditation. And a lot of people do a lot of commuting these days. And so if you're doing something like that, this can be a great time to unwind. This could be your meditation time. You're like, I don't have the time to meditate, da da da. It's like, but you have a 20-minute commute in the morning and in the evening. Like, that's your time. Use that. Start there, This stuff isn't supposed to be hard. It's supposed to help. So, yeah, if you're experiencing anything like that, I would say start with some breathing, some deep belly breathing, consistent, set a timer for 5 minutes, close your eyes and do belly breaths. And I promise you will feel better after that. Another thing you can do is meditation and mindfulness and awareness. And so this is both when in the waking world, aka when you're not sitting there on your mat practicing or meditating. This is also when you're walking around throughout your day to be aware. A lot of people think, oh, well, I'm off my mat, I don't have to be aware anymore. It's like, no, this is a 24-hour job, man. This is a 24-hour job. So awareness and meditation and obviously relaxation. I think that's a highly sought after thing. True rest is a highly sought after thing that very few people actually know how to do, I feel. I do not see that many people actually able to rest these days in this modern life with the things that are around us and technology and all of the consumerism. And so to allow yourself to rest, to cherish that rest, and to feel nourished by rest is a rebellion flex, in my opinion. Like, do it up. Do, as Osho says, do anything unimportant. That will do. Just go do something literally for fun or for just relaxation. Pick some flowers in your yard, or just walk around barefoot, or lay down and take a nap, or read a good book, or paint a picture, or learn a new skill like knitting or something that you can sit and do. Just have fun with life. And you'll be amazed at what little there is actually that we can be anxious about on a day-to-day basis. Because truly, yeah, we don't have a whole lot of control over much other than our own mind and our own awareness and our own intentions. So focus on those. Do the best you can with those things. Treat yourself the best that you can with the things that you have and the knowledge that you know. And yeah, treat others with the same love that you treat yourself with. And if you don't treat yourself with much love, increase that and then also treat others with that same love. So yes, I hope you found this quickie little episode to be helpful. A lot of people come to yoga with anxiety and they're like, how do I heal this? And truly, everything I said here is exactly where you start. And if you'd like to learn more about how to practice Hatha Yoga in your everyday life, go on over to my website, holistichathayoga.com, and start there. One light, one love, friends. Bye. Om Loka Samista Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.